Well, new tonight, dozens of people are losing their jobs as a company shuts down 2 twist drill operations on the Iron Range. Walter Surface Technologies informed the state this week that it is shutting down Minnesota Twist Drill in Chisholm and Triumph Twist Drill in Hibbing. A total of 77 people will lose their jobs at those 2 locations. The first 32 jobs will be cut at the Chisholm location in June, with more people losing their jobs by August. The company's notification says the closure of both plants is permanent.